Hi, welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please support us by subscribing and turning on your notification buttons. Thank you. The kingdom of Dagbon in northern Ghana is believed to have been established by migrating cavalrymen who came from the Lake Chad Basin in the 15th century. This group was led by Tohaji, also known as the Red Hunter, whose descendants eventually founded Dagbon after conquering the Dagomba, who were the aboriginal settlers in the Volta River Basin. It should be noted that, like other oral explanations about ethnic origins, there are contestations about the particular descendant of Tahoji who founded Dagbon. Some accounts credit Sitobu as the founder, while some traditions insist it was his son, Na Nyangese. Either way, the founders established a capital city at Yendi Dabari, and the rulers took the title Yana. The royal title is particularly impressive and can be roughly translated as the king of strength. In other quarters, the Yana was regarded as the lion of Dagbon, in reference to their military antecedents as warrior kings. Indeed, the Yana was a really powerful king who acted as supreme judge and the commander-in-chief of the army. Historians suggest that the Dagbon were warlike people, and so war, then later trade, dominates the bulk of Dagbon's history. As I mentioned earlier, Dagbon's military founders descended on and subdued the aboriginal people and their leaders that they met on the ground. They then installed themselves as paramount rulers. So after the conquest of Dagomba, the kingdom was then divided into 3 provinces: Karaga, Mion, and Savelugu, with each of these provinces administered by princes who were related to the royal family. Although the royalty held most of the political power, the government ensured that wealth trickled down to the poorer classes. And in a visit to Dagbon's capital, Yandi, during the first quarter of the 19th century, a European visitor was so impressed that he describes it glowingly and by recording that it was larger than Kumasi, with beautifully built and decorated houses. The same visitor to Yandi also reports that Ashantis who visited the city told him that they frequently lost their way in the streets of the large city. The markets of Yandi are described as vibrant scenes of commerce, and they were usually crowded with merchants from almost all the neighboring towns and kingdoms. As warlike people, the Dagbon traded in horses as well as cattle, but both rich and poor had the ability, actually possessed flocks of animals. So it was not just the rich who were traders in flocks of animals. Around the 17th century, another kingdom, the Mende kingdom of Gonja, led by their warriors known as Bonya, emerged and established themselves close to Dagbon. So the kingdom of Gonja was created after the conquest of Dagbon's neighbors. And Gonja then soon started trying to make incursions to conquer Dagmo. Some historians record that the bad blood between Gonja and Dagmo cannot be divorced from the desire of the two kingdoms to control the international trade route that connected the region with Hausa land. Now, as such, the war between Dagmo and Gonja was particularly costly and devastating in terms of lives and property. It led to the abandonment of Dagmon's first capital at Yendi Dabari. A new capital was, however, established and also named Yendi, and this capital survived longer than the first capital. However, even after moving the capital city, Gonja continued to pose a threat to Dagmon until, led by a powerful Yena, a powerful Dagon king, the Dagon then managed to defeat the Gonja in a decisive battle in the early 18th century. Historians, however, note that although Dagon won the war against the Gonja, the battle left Dagon weak and vulnerable to an Ashanti incursion which followed soon after they defeated Gonja. This is said to be one of the reasons why it was possible for the Ashanti Ehene, the king of the Ashanti, to establish his influence over Dagbon. Subsequently, Dagbon had to pay annual tributes to the Ashanti until the European scramble and partition of Africa. Now, during this phase, Dagbon became the subject of the imperial interests of Germany and Britain initially. The two countries, that is Britain and Germany, agreed to maintain Dagbon as a neutral zone before eventually parceling it into British Gold Coast and a German colony of Togo. The partitioning of the Dagbon Kingdom into two separate colonial estates had the grave consequences of had very great consequences because it allocated Yendi, the capital of Dagbon, as part of German Togo, while the bulk of the kingdom, of the rest of Dagbon Kingdom, was located in British Gold Coast. Such illogical divisions of African people without regard for our history or culture remains one of the legacies of European colonialism that post-colonial African states are still grappling with. Germany eventually lost Dagbon along with other African colonies after World War One, and Dagbon Kingdom was substantially reunited when Togo was split between France and Britain, and then Western Togo became part of Gold Coast. Under the British system of indirect rule, the status of the king, the Yena of Dagbon, became recognized as a principal chief. The position became recognized as a principal chieftaincy in Dagomba. So the Yena was also imposed on the kingdom on Kokomba, who were not initially under the dominion of the Dagbon. This colonial decision poisoned the relationship between the Kokoma and the Dagomba and has led to the loss of lives and wanton destruction of properties on both sides. Equally destructive was the colonial decision to interfere with the chieftaincy institution of Dagbon. In the past, the Dagbon had the traditional way of nominating their Yana, who was then confirmed by the oracles. But the British imposed a new system wherein a selection committee that was appointed by them would determine the next Yana. This decision, coupled with money politics, destroyed any chance of social harmony in the kingdom. And as recently as 2002, a sitting Yena and his council of chiefs were murdered in cold blood by disgruntled royalties who were contesting his rights to the throne. This once again buttresses the need for African countries to evolve ways of renegotiating coexistence that colonial structures destroyed. We need to design new systems that factor in our dynamic histories. Thank you for watching the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please continue to sustain us and support us by telling your friends about us, giving us a thumbs up, and sharing our videos. Thank you.